Conspiracy theory, a belief that some covert but influential organization is responsible for a circumstance or event. That has morphed into any belief other than the official narrative coming to us through the media. Let's just look at the most glaring, most obvious one. The official narrative regarding the JFK assassination is that this guy, with no associations to the FBI, CIA, mobsters, Russia, nor anyone else, took his Italian-made bolt-action rifle to work with him at the Texas School Book Depository, hiked up on the 6th floor, fired the first shot at the limousine and missed everything, including the car. And then the two shots that were the furthest away, he shot perfectly through the neck, back, and head of the president. To believe the official story, you have to believe that he got off 3 shots in 5.6 seconds. 2 videos that seem to have disappeared is one of Oswald being arrested in the movie theater where he continually shouts, "I am not resisting arrest," and the other where he's asked a question in the Dallas Police Department and he says, "I'm just a patsy. I'm a patsy in this." Why would a guy being arrested for not paying his 50 cents to get into the movie, swarmed by police, be shouting, "I am not resisting arrest"? Was he afraid he was going to be killed while in custody?
In bringing Oswald out, they were, of course, doing something that you would never see happen today.
You killed the president?
No, I've not been charged with that. In fact, nobody has said that to me yet. The first thing I heard about it was when the newspaper reporters in the hall asked me that question.
But he was killed in custody. And to believe the official story, you have to believe that this happened on its own without any planning.
Here he comes. Now the prisoner wearing a white spider on his t-shirt.
Let me have it. I want it.
Being let out by Captain Fritz. There is the prisoner.
There is Lee.
So there you have it. The guy that killed the president is dead. Once again, a lone actor. Killed the guy that killed the president. No associations. Not really.
Everything pertaining to what's happening has never come to the surface. The world will never know the true facts of what occurred, my motives. The people had so much to gain and had such an ulterior motive for putting me in a position I'm in. We'll never let the true facts come over to the world. Are these people in very high position, Jack? Yes.
It was safe to take Jack Ruby to trial. He was just going to be tried for something everybody saw on TV. Convicted, sentenced to death. Jack Ruby, at the end of his trial, gave that interview you just saw where he said, "If they will take me out of this federal prison in Dallas and house me in Washington, I'll tell the whole story." So they never moved him. Dorothy Kilgallen began visiting Jack Ruby in jail and made the comment, "I'm going to blow the lid off the JFK assassination." Give you 3 guesses as to what happened to Dorothy Kilgallen. The reporter that was conversing with the guy that shot the president is now dead. To believe the official story, you have to believe that Dorothy Kilgallen died in a bed she never slept in, reading a book she had already read, holding it upside down without her reading glasses, and an empty bottle of Seconal on the nightstand. You never hear about this piece of evidence. While two government lackeys hid off in a room, the two women switchboard operators in the jailhouse pulled a fast one on Lee Harvey Oswald. He gave them these two phone numbers to call, and while the government officials sat in the other room, they instructed them what to do, and they went on one at a time and told Oswald that there was no answer. Oddly enough, these two phone numbers went to an indiscreet retired FBI agent that has no earthly idea where he got those numbers or why he would have been calling him. And odder still is nobody ever came to see that agent. It's pretty obvious that Oswald believed that he was an asset either of the CIA or the FBI and was given these two phone numbers to call if he was ever in dire need.
Two telephone numbers. Mrs. Swinney takes the key off so that Oswald can't hear her, but he's still on the line, and switches in to the two men that are sitting in the equipment room. And she tells them everything that Oswald had just said. Mrs. Treon is sitting over there, and having heard all of it, she's writing down all this information. That's what Mrs. Treon was doing. Wrote down everything that Lee Oswald said, and Mrs. Swinney repeated it to the two men in the next room. Now, Mrs. Treon couldn't hear the response of the two men, but after a few seconds, Mrs. Swinney said, fine, or okay, or whatever, and disconnected the two men in the other room. And Mrs. Treon would later say that Mrs. Swinney was sitting there extremely nervous, shaking, obviously very agitated at what she was next supposed to do. And that was this. She opened the key back up to Oswald and said, "I'm sorry, sir, no one answered at that number." Closed the key, and the call was finished. She never attempted to make the call, and almost certainly it was not her idea not to do that. The story continues that the two men came out of the room, thanked them for their cooperation, and left. Oswald didn't know when he was making this call that he had 12 hours left to live. Mrs. Treon would later say that she was absolutely dumbfounded at the way that had played itself out. Now let's take a look at the slip that Mrs. Treon actually wrote.
Lee Harvey Oswald was an idiot, and just about anybody that works with the FBI and CIA doing anything unsanctioned is being used as a patsy. You got to be stupid. Ask the Boston bombers. He was led to believe that he was working for this E.L. Hunt, and we'll find out about him now. This is the undisputed mistress of the moral giant LBJ. She even had a son through him. She spent the day and into the night with LBJ the night before the assassination.
Let's go back to the night before. When Johnson came out of the meeting, what did he say to you?
He was so angry, and he said, "After tomorrow, those SOBs will never embarrass me again. That's no threat. That's a promise."
LBJ came out of the pre-assassination party and told his mistress that after tomorrow, those Kennedys will never embarrass me again. And then he stole a line out of a John Wayne movie and said, "That's not a threat, that's a promise."
And it startled me, really, that they would never embarrass him again. That SOB, the Irish Mafia, I think, he referred to him as the Irish Mafia very often.
But he said they would never embarrass him again.
I'd never embarrass him again. There was no threat. That was a promise.
LBJ plainly knew about the murder taking place the next day. He was pals with this billionaire oil tycoon H.L. Hunt from Texas, and H.L. Hunt hated the Irish Mafia too. And you're going to see her implicate him as well.
Hi, my name is Jerry Croth, and I'm a professor in California. And this video is a knock your socks off kind of thing. It is, in my view, the most important discovery on the Kennedy assassination in years, in decades. Written by Lee Harvey Oswald on November 8, 1963. Now that's 14 days before Kennedy was killed, and it's 16 days before Oswald was murdered. I'm suggesting that we discuss the matter fully before any steps are taken by me or anybody else. Thank you, Lee Harvey Oswald. This cannot stand because it means Oswald is involved with somebody. There's a conspiracy afoot, Mr. Hunt. It also means that something is going to happen that is being planned.
They went to mapping a plan out of, or a plot, how to get rid of John Kennedy.
So how much more do you need, really? I mean, common sense, okay? H.L. Hunt, oil tycoon, pals with LBJ, can't stand the Kennedys, refers to them as the Irish Mafia, sets out a plan to kill them. We've got a handwritten note from Lee Harvey Oswald to Mr. Hunt. What does it take? On January 3rd, 1967, in between his first and second trial, Ruby died. The president was dead. The guy who shot the president was dead. The guy who shot the guy who shot the president was dead. The gal who interviewed the guy who shot the guy who shot the president was dead. And then witnesses, over 100 of them, started dying like cattle. Over half of the witnesses died by way of gunshot, suicide, very suspicious crashes. Even 2 disappeared, never to be seen again. And stranger than anything that's been told yet is the fact that in 1967 the BBC did a report on these disappearing witnesses. They brought in a statistician who put the odds of these over 100 witnesses dying at over 1 billion to 1. That news report can't be found anywhere.
Hide a man with a rifle, and how he can manage to shoot a man speeding past him in a limousine. The answer is that he can't, and that is why the driver, William Greer, looked around twice to see whether Kennedy had been hit in the head, and when he saw he hadn't, as dozens of witnesses, including police officers, confirmed, he stopped the car completely. Whereas it's quite clear that his head is knocked upwards and to the left by the impact.
His head could be seen to move violently forward. Violently forward.
So where did that bullet come from? Incredibly, the answer has lain hidden in the most well-known and iconic image from the assassination of the motorcycle policeman heaving his bike onto its stand. Look now as we freeze frame him here. This is the moment when the whole world was looking up the hill toward the man who had fired from the grassy knoll, but that is not where the police officer is looking. He is looking down into the storm drain, because that is where that shot at a stationary car came from.
If you think the car wasn't stationary, look at the Secret Service running to the trailing car. It's completely stopped. Do you think the Secret Service would not go right in behind the president's limo? It's a stationary car. Watch.
Heaving his bike onto its stand.
One more time to a stationary car.
Heaving his bike onto its stand. Look.
The official story says that the car kept going at 11 miles an hour. All the witnesses said it came to a complete stop. The video shows the president's head going up and to the left. Dan Rather says,
His head could be seen to move violently forward.
It's been my experience with American media that you can tell more by the lies and the cover-up than you can by the actual crime. Let me explain. In this story, my house explodes in the middle of the day while I'm at work, kills my whole family. A week later, I'm in a grocery store, and Frank comes up to me and says, "Gosh, I'm sorry to hear about your house and your family. I was in Canada at the time and just got back last night. Sorry to hear that, pal." I'm already not happy that the sheriff just walked in, looked at the thing, and said it had to be a gas explosion. No investigation, wrapped it up, and that's it. Then I find out that Frank has never been to Canada in his life, and he was lying. Does that mean Frank blew up my house? No. But mix in 1,000 other inconsistencies, and we've got a real problem. That's what you have in JFK. If this guy had no ties or associations, why did he shoot the president? If this guy had no ties or associations, why did he kill Oswald? And if he had a story to tell, why didn't they move him to Washington? If she wasn't going to blow the lid off the JFK assassination, why was she murdered? Why would LBJ's mistress implicate LBJ and H.L. Hunt? How in hell would H.L. Hunt get a note from Oswald if they didn't know each other? Explain to me what the difference is between this guy and this guy.
His head could be seen to move violently forward.
I believe 0% of everything they tell me about this guy. 0.